Provo Beast to another install today. Today we're working on this Ford E-Series. This is actually the RV version of the E-Series van. What we're going to be doing is replacing this factory single din, or the single din that they installed from the RV side of the business. Now, a lot of the time you'll actually have a double din in there from Ford specifically, but if you have the RV version, generally they'll put a single din in its place. We're going to be pulling this guy out, putting in a double din, doing an Apple Carplay Pioneer version, and we're going to show you how to remove the factory radio, wire up the new double din, and reinstallation. Provo Beast Audio Installation Channel is sponsored by NVX and Sonic Electronics. Get 10% off all speakers, amplifiers, wiring kits, and more with coupon code PBAI at NVX. Also get 5% off all car audio components at Sonic Electronics with coupon code Provo Beast. So the first thing here we need to do is actually pull this whole bezel around the radio out. It's actually all one piece. It actually wraps up and around the steering column as well. Now bear with me as I try to film this install. We're out and about today, so I don't have my tripod with me. But usually what I've done is you can kind of start from this corner, get your fingers up underneath, just like so. Just kind of get a little bit of a tug. What you're going to do, and I do have a panel tool if that's a little bit easier for you. You'll just work your way up and around the steering wheel column here. Now, of course, be careful. Some of these will have harnesses hooked on to the other side, so you'll have to pop them out. We'll get this slowly loosened all the way around. Again, all just with clips so far. So, depending on your model, this is the RV, so you have the generator start controls here. We're gonna have to disconnect those, and then you have your dim brightness. Go ahead and disconnect that. And then on this end, you're gonna have your harnesses that connect to your HVAC controls and your power points. Go ahead and disconnect those. All right, so I disconnected this harness. It's just a little tab that you push in and it'll pop on out. Again, this whole thing is just held on with clips. And then I disconnected the two power points here, and again, you just press the tab and it pops on out for both of them. These guys I actually left plugged in because these aren't driven by a wire, they're driven by vacuum lines. And so I'm going to try not to mess with these a whole lot, just because I don't want to create an issue with a leak on these controls. So I left them there. And then since this is the RV version, we had a switch panel there for your emergency start in case your primary battery goes dead. I did pop those out just because those were easy, but you may not have those if you're working on the van version of this install. And then pulling your steering wheel all the way down, putting in the key and pulling your gear shift down, make sure your emergency brake is on. But this will slide up and over the steering column. It's super tight, and I probably play with it for about 10 minutes to get it actually up and over the column. The tightest portion is this part right here, so you can pop this little portion down. Again, just held on with clips, just kind of get a hold of it and pull it back. But once this is out and free, I'm not going to disconnect a lot of it. I'm just going to pull it forward, and that'll give me the access to the radio. Now, these are 7mm. You can actually go ahead and pull those out. We're going to have to disconnect the battery here because the key is in, but yet the radio is on. But once you do so, you can actually pull that out and disconnect your harnesses from the radio, so we have space to work. Okay, once the radio's out, you'll disconnect your harnesses here. You may or may not have more, but we have our primary harness and then our antenna here. Now we're going to need adapters for these. We're going to show you the parts that you'll need. We'll also post them in the description, just so you have that as well. So let's head to our bench, or in this case, the little table here in the back, and get things wired up on the new radio. Okay, so we're here in the, actually just the back of the RV here, but the parts you'll need here, at least we're doing a double din here. We're doing the Metra 955812 double din dash kit. For a wiring harness, we're doing the 70-5520. The antenna adapter we'll need is the Metra 40-CR10. And then, since the aux and USB are on the back of the radio, we're doing a aux USB relocation kit. It's a flush mount kit. Okay, so we've stripped both ends. Now, fortunately, Metra and Pioneer and most aftermarket brands will actually color code their wires very similarly. Okay, so we went ahead and made all our crimp connections. Now, what may differ depending if you have the RV version or the van version of the C-Series is if you have the RV version, the rear speakers are actually in the ceiling in the back, and they don't run through your regular harness. You'll notice in the RV version there's 2 pairs of wires actually coming separately beside the harness into the dash cavity, which your rear speakers will connect into. So we capped those off, and those will connect into those other wires. We'll show you what that looks like. We wired in our bypass, micro bypass. This allows for video playback while in motion. We connected the bright green to the bypass's green. We just tapped into ground, which is the black for the bypass, and the blue-white wire connected into the bypass's solid blue. And then we're going to actually wire these out separately here. We will be running a backup camera on this, so this is the purple-white wire for a Pioneer. We're going to keep that out separately as well, and then everything else should be nice and tidy. Okay, all cleaned up, ready to go. Now for the aux USB relocation kit, fortunately there was a blank here, so we popped the blank out and popped this in. And what it does is just uses a nut and tightens on the back. And this provides the aux and USB 3.0 to the back of the radio, and you have a nice factory looking plug to actually connect into. Okay, so we took the Bluetooth mic just kind of up by the sun visor on the top left-hand corner on the top of the A-pillar, and we just tucked it in. And the nice thing is, this molding comes back, so I just tucked the wire up and down. I have the beep on, sorry about that. Kept tucking it. And at this point, we just went up underneath. Now this panel can just pop down. You just kind of give it a tug. Went up underneath the steering column, and then pulled it right on out there. We have our harness plugged in. We have our aux and USB that we just installed. We have our antenna adapter plugged in. We have our Bluetooth mic ready to go. Let's go ahead and get this dash all put back together. First of all, let's get our radio mounted using the same 7mm screws we used and pulled out of the factory one. Alright, so we got this all plugged back in and bolted up. It's on and testing, and it sounds great. Let's go ahead and reconnect all our harnesses here on this dash bezel, and then work the dash bezel back and over the steering column and get it clipped back in its factory location. Okay, so we got the radio mounted. Now you're going to have to use the screws that they provide in the kit with little spacers in order for the pocket itself to stick out. So read the instructions. Make sure you do. The spacers go back behind the tap so it brings the radio out just a hair so it fits somewhat perfectly around the actual factory cavity. Once you get those new screws all in, go ahead and plug your harnesses back into the back of your dash bezel and begin popping it back in. Okay, dash all back in. Looks super nice. Got some heart playing. Cool. That's about it. If you have any questions about this install, just go and post a comment below. Thanks guys for watching the channel, and we will certainly see you in the next video.